Winning is not just about outcomes, it's about who we become in the process, because the true measure of success is not the medal, the recognition, or the applause, but the transformation that takes place within us as we chase something bigger than ourselves. It is in the long nights of discipline, in the mornings when you rise even though everything in you wants to stay down, in the quiet battles with doubt, and in the relentless commitment to show up when no one is keeping score, that the real art of winning is born. For it teaches patience when we are tempted by shortcuts, resilience when we face failure, and humility when we realize that no matter how far we go, there is always more to learn, and this process molds us into someone who is stronger, wiser, and more capable of handling not only victories but also losses with grace. The process strips away illusions and builds character, reminding us that who we are becoming matters far more than what we are achieving, because the journey demands courage in the face of fear, persistence in the face of setbacks, and integrity in the face of temptations to compromise. And as we endure the grind, the sweat, and the tears, we slowly discover parts of ourselves we didn't know existed. The resilience to stand tall after disappointment, the creativity to find solutions when doors close, the compassion to support others even as we strive for our own dreams, and the strength to keep believing when doubt surrounds us. And in this way, the process of striving toward victory transforms us into someone we can be proud of, someone who has learned that real winning is not found in the outcome itself, but in the growth, the lessons, and the unshakable spirit forged along the way, because the finish line is fleeting, but the person we become while pursuing it is permanent, and that person is the truest and most powerful definition of victory. True victory comes from courageously showing up, even when the odds aren't in your favor, because the essence of winning is not found in guaranteed outcomes, but in the willingness to take a step forward into uncertainty, knowing full well that failure, rejection, or disappointment may meet you on the other side. It is in those moments when everything seems stacked against you, when the voices of doubt are loud, and when the easier choice would be to walk away, that the real definition of victory is written. For showing up is an act of defiance against fear and surrender, and it is in that simple yet profound decision to stand in the arena that transformation begins. Every time we step forward, despite trembling hands or shaky voices, we prove to ourselves that courage matters more than comfort, that effort carries more weight than outcome, and that our worth is not tied to whether the world crowns us, but to whether we chose to rise and engage with the challenge. Showing up builds resilience, for even if the odds crush us once, we discover that we can stand again, and each time we return, we carry with us a deeper strength, a clearer sense of self, and a stronger belief that the impossible is only temporary. Victory born from favorable odds may bring satisfaction, but victory earned in the face of overwhelming difficulty brings pride, authenticity, and a sense of alignment with our true potential, because it proves that we are not defined by circumstances, but by choices. To show up against all odds is to declare that failure does not get the final word, that setbacks are not verdicts but stepping stones, and that the human spirit is more powerful than statistics, predictions, or external judgments. The courage to appear when you could have hidden, to try when you could have surrendered, and to persist when you could have quit creates a kind of victory that cannot be taken away. For even if the scoreboard says you lost, your soul knows you won by refusing to let fear dictate your actions. And in the end, that is the kind of victory that shaped character, that builds trust with yourself, and that carries into every corner of life, reminding you that the real win is not only in achieving what you dreamed, but in becoming the kind of person who never stopped showing up, no matter the odds. Failure is not the opposite of winning. It's part of the journey that shapes it, because every stumble, every misstep, and every disappointment carries within it the raw material of growth, teaching us lessons that triumph alone could never provide. And while the world often frames failure as a dead end, the truth is that it is a passageway, a refining fire that strips away illusions, strengthens resolve, and reveals the depths of our resilience. When we fail, we are confronted with the reality of our limitations, yet it is in that confrontation that we learn adaptability, resourcefulness, and the ability to rise again with greater wisdom, for each failure is a mirror reflecting not just where we fell short, but where we have the chance to become stronger, braver, and more prepared for the next challenge. Winning without failure may feel sweet, but it is shallow because it has not been tested, while a victory forged through setbacks and obstacles carries the richness of authenticity and the depth of earned confidence. Failure humbles us, reminding us that success is never guaranteed, and at the same time it empowers us, showing us that setbacks are survivable, that wounds heal, and that our story does not end in the dust unless we choose to stay there. Every person who has ever achieved something remarkable has walked through the valley of failure, gathering the grit and courage that later allowed them to stand tall, and it is this cycle of trying, falling, rising, and trying again that crafts the kind of spirit capable of handling both loss and success with grace. Failure dismantles pride but builds character. It breaks illusions but builds truth, and though it often feels heavy and painful in the moment, it becomes the very foundation on which our greatest victories are built, because it forces us to dig deeper, to question ourselves, to innovate, and to discover reserves of strength we never knew existed. In the long run, failure does not stand in the way of winning. It carves the way toward it, molding us into individuals who can stand firm when the pressure rises and remain grounded when the applause comes. For without failure, winning is fragile, but with it, winning becomes unshakable, carrying within it the story of struggle, resilience, and transformation that makes the triumph not just an outcome, but a testimony of who we became along the way. Comparison steals the joy of achievement. Authentic winning is measured against your own growth, because when we constantly measure ourselves against others, we blind ourselves to the beauty of our own progress, chasing a finish line that was never meant for us. And no matter how much we accomplish, it will always feel insufficient if it is stacked against someone else's journey, for their path is shaped by different struggles, circumstances, and opportunities, while ours is uniquely our own. The real art of winning lies in looking back at where you once stood and realizing how far you've come, in recognizing the battles you've fought quietly, the doubts you've overcome, the skills you've built, and the strength you've cultivated through persistence, for those are the true markers of victory. Comparison shrinks even the most significant accomplishments into something that feels small because the spotlight is turned outward instead of inward, but when we shift our gaze toward our own growth, every step forward, no matter how small, becomes something to be celebrated, and it is in this space that winning takes on its truest meaning. Authentic winning is not about proving superiority, but about honoring progress, about saying to yourself that you are stronger, wiser, and braver than you were yesterday, and that you had the courage to keep going when stopping would have been easier. Growth is not always visible to others, but it is deeply felt, whether it is in the resilience to face a fear, the patience to wait for the right moment, or the strength to get back up after falling. And when winning is measured this way, it no longer depends on external applause, but on an inner sense of fulfillment that cannot be shaken by comparison. The danger of measuring success against others is that it puts you in a race you never chose, a race that keeps moving its goalposts, leaving you exhausted and empty, while measuring against yourself roots you in authenticity and allows you to celebrate victories that are real, sustainable, and deeply personal. Joy comes not from being better than someone else, but from knowing you are living fully into your own potential, and that each effort, each lesson, and each milestone adds up to a version of you that is more aligned with who you were meant to be. In the end, comparison robs achievement of its soul, but self-measured growth infuses it with meaning. And that is the kind of winning that not only brings joy, but also sustains it, because it is anchored in truth, in effort, and in the undeniable evidence that you are becoming the person you were created to be. Gratitude and humility transform victories into something that uplifts others, not just yourself, because while achievement can be powerful on its own, it becomes truly meaningful when it is held with a spirit that acknowledges the people, circumstances, and lessons that made it possible, reminding us that no victory is ever accomplished in isolation. For behind every success, there are teachers, mentors, friends, loved ones, and even adversaries who shape the journey. Gratitude softens the sharp edges of triumph, turning it from a self-centered pursuit into a shared celebration, allowing us to honor the sacrifices that carried us, the encouragement that steadied us, and the challenges that forced us to grow. And humility ensures that even in the glow of accomplishment, we stay grounded, remembering that winning does not make us more valuable than others, but instead gives us opportunity to inspire, serve, and create pathways for those who will come after us. When gratitude and humility intertwine with success, victories no longer end with us. They ripple outward, lighting the way for others who dare to dream and reminding them that achievement is not reserved for extraordinary but is possible through persistence, courage, and belief. Triumph without gratitude often breeds arrogance, and triumph without humility often isolates. But when we carry both, victory becomes an act of connection, weaving threads between people rather than building walls of pride. It is gratitude that allows us to see winning as a gift rather than an entitlement, and it is humility that keeps us open to learning even after the world applauds, showing that success is not the finish line, but a stepping stone toward deeper growth and greater contribution. The victories that endure are not the ones shouted the loudest, but the ones remembered for how they lifted others, how they encouraged the discouraged, and how they planted seeds of hope in those who were ready to give up. And by choosing gratitude, we keep our hearts soft enough to value the journey, while by choosing humility, we keep our perspective clear enough to know that every win carries responsibility. Together, they transform achievement into legacy, and they ensure that when we look back, our victories will not be measured merely by what we gained, but by how we made others feel stronger, braver, more willing to believe in their own possibility. Because the true art of winning is not just in holding the prize, but in holding it in a way that creates space for others to rise. The art of winning is learning to keep your heart open, before, during, and after the fight, because the journey of striving towards something meaningful is not just about grit and determination, but also about vulnerability, compassion, and the willingness to remain human in the midst of challenge. Before the fight, keeping your heart open means entering with courage rather than fear, with a spirit willing to embrace both possibility and risk, knowing that stepping into the arena of life demands the strength to be seen as you are, imperfect yet determined, and during the fight it means holding on to your integrity even when pressure tempts you to compromise, keeping your compassion alive even when competition stirs envy, and staying connected to purpose rather than getting lost in the noise of fear or pride, because winning without heart leaves victory hollow, but winning with heart creates something lasting and true. After the fight, keeping your heart open means being humble enough to honor those who stood with you, generous enough to celebrate even the small steps of progress, and brave enough to face either victory or defeat with grace, because both outcomes test us in different ways. Success can harden us with arrogance if we close off, and failure can harden us with bitterness if we shut down. But an open heart turns success into gratitude and failure into wisdom. This openness allows us to see winning not as a single event, but as an unfolding journey, one where we carry lessons forward and remain willing to keep striving, loving, and believing no matter how many battles we face. To keep your heart open is to resist cynicism when setbacks come, to resist pride when triumphs arrive, and to resist numbness when exhaustion sets in. Because the world does not need us to win by closing off. It needs us to win by showing that strength and softness can coexist, that resilience and compassion are not opposites but partners, and that true victory is not simply about conquering an obstacle, but about preserving the humanity that makes the journey worthwhile. When your heart remains open, winning becomes more than a personal accomplishment. It becomes a gift that touches others, inspiring them not just by what you achieved, but by how you carried yourself through it all. And that is the art that transforms victory from a fleeting moment into a lasting influence, proving that the greatest triumph is not only in what you gained, but in the courage to remain fully alive, fully present, and fully open before, during, and after the fight.